they just sort of. There's pens up here too. Pens are good.
Thanks, Carmen.
I might have to steal one. I don't have one.
We are live. We're live.
Yeah.
All right.
Be live. Yes,
Yeah.
we are.
See, I'll wave.
Right there. Well, 20 seconds. Takes that time for it to get up to the satellite and back. So
There's
yes,
a
we are
slight
live.
delay. It's got to go through that whole internet cable thing.
It's sort of
The
like.
jigger.
But you're live. You're ready to go.
Oh, good.
Good evening, folks. I'd like to welcome everybody out, especially Mr. Schimmel in the front seat there. It's a pleasure seeing you guys. It is a lot of fun. I'm so excited that you're here. My name is Kevin Brackney. I'm the superintendent of Show Schools. And before we get started, would you please stand and join me with the Pledge of Allegiance? I
Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. Before we get started tonight, I'd like to just take a minute and thank you all for taking some time out of your lives, your busy schedules to come tonight. I'm a believer in start on time, end on time, and we're going to do that. Before we do get started, though, I do want to say and give a special thanks to these kids that you see standing around here, and the ones you don't see. I'm going to introduce them in a minute, but they're actually recording this, and we're shooting it live out over the internet to a couple of different sites, and we have a phone number and everything that's on the website and being broadcast out, so folks sitting at home can watch and call in. And I have the lucky task of answering the phone, so I'm excited about that. But before we do get started, I want to introduce the Show High School media production students. Our technical director this evening is Isaiah Miller. Audio director is James Firm. Assistant director is Christina Schwab. Camera operators are Dominic Stem, Ray Della Torre, Kyle Marler, Zoe Lewis, and Hunter Marsh. A special thank you goes to Jerry Butler, who is our teacher, who spends countless hours out of the classroom with these kids. This last year we had two of them leave this production program that we have here at Show and go over to California and Los Angeles and walk right in and start running a camera on a production site. We've got a couple more at Scottsdale Community College and a couple more at ASU at the Cronkite Center there. So I appreciate Jerry. He probably puts in an extra 200 or 300 hours a semester every year doing this stuff with these kids. And he makes a huge difference. Also, Mel West works with the city and runs their TV programs there, and he is out helping, and it is just an awesome job. For us here in Sholo and the White Mountains, they broadcast our football games, basketball games, other events, plays, and all sorts of things. So give these kids a round of applause, would you? So I'm going to turn the time over to our illustrious panel for their introductions, and we'll get started on with the evening. When it gets down to it, just so you'll know, and you'll hear it a couple times, there are some mics here. They're here to hear your comments tonight about the state standards and about that. But there there's paper here along with pens. So when you come up, if you'll print down your name, write your name, tell us who you are, your zip code, email address, that sort of thing, and then a question, and then go ahead and ask that. We'd like to have a written record of what's asked so we don't forget, all right? So with that in mind, I'd like to turn the time over to Linda Morrow, our Navajo County School Superintendent.
Can I start with this and not lead into the other one? Good evening. I'm Linda Morrow. I'm the Navajo County Superintendent of Schools, and I'd like to introduce my peer, Mr. Barry Williams, who is the Apache County Superintendent of Schools. We've been brought out here tonight to do a number of things, but first of all, I'd sort of like to thank the people in the audience. We've got board members in the audience, and so if the board members could stand up, and let's thank them for being here. We've got Margaret, where are you? Come on. great job. Thank you. Because it's not an easy job, the ones that you do, and I appreciate you being here tonight. We also have school districts that are here. I see Blue Ridge, I see Sholo, Round Valley is here, Holbrook is here. I see a representative from NPC here. Who else is here that I haven't? St. John's is here. Who have I missed? Where? White River's here. Okay, good. So we have people from close by here, and I appreciate you doing this tonight because winter is coming. I'm pretty sure of that. We'd like to thank Mr. Brackney and all of the kids that are here tonight for helping us put this together. It was no easy task. Oops. It was no easy task. I guess I should do that. And recognize all the work that went into this. As you may know, the Arizona State Board of Education is by law responsible for setting policy for Arizona public schools, including the minimum requirements for what students are expected to learn, also known as the academic standards. In March, the State Board of Education was tasked with reviewing Arizona's math and English language arts standards in order to ensure that the standards are vetted, approved, and controlled by Arizona, and that they are the best for Arizona students. And that's what we're here to talk about tonight, are those standards. In April, the State Board of Education established the Arizona Academic Standards Development Committee to oversee the development of the Arizona Mathematics Standards and the Arizona English Language Arts Standards. Mr. Williams?
Thank you, Linda. And before we get started, I'm just looking at the webcast here, and I'll ask our staff, they put the URL as GOS and it's GOO, so I'll ask them to make that correction, and hopefully we'll see that in a minute. But the public input is very important. It plays a very important role in this review process. So along with creating a website at the state that allows parents and the teachers and the community members to review the current standards and to provide their thoughts and input, we want to do this public meeting as well, so we have a stakeholders. And we're making an attempt to do a webcast to reach these distant communities across Apache and Navajo counties. And all of us in the audience here, we're familiar with Apache and Navajo County and the distances we travel. Not so certain that the state recognizes how large our county is, but sometimes that's the case. But I want to appreciate everybody who's come this evening. And again, if you are in the audience or listening to us on the webcast, you can submit your comments. We will take them for the record. We'll read them here. I'm getting them live on my computer as they come in. It's https://google.goo.gl, and then the rest of it is correct in the web, in the way it's printed in the title bars. For you in the audience, you don't see this, but it's there. And the phone number, again, just to read it to you aloud, is 928-537-6297, and there is a single phone line, so it's possible you'll be seeing a busy signal. So either way you want to send your comments, we would appreciate. So with that, I'll let Linda take and introduce Chuck.
Well, and I forgot Judge Rickle sitting in the audience as well, so we appreciate her being here as well. And I'd like to introduce Mr. Chuck Schmidt from the State Board, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. Can you hear me if I don't use this one? No? Good? Better? Better? Okay. Well, again, thank you for being here. My name is Chuck Schmidt. I am on the Arizona State Board of Education. I was appointed by Governor Ducey and ratified in the Senate in March of this year. And along with myself, Mr. Tim Carter, the Yavapai County Superintendent, and Jared Taylor, we are the three new members sitting on the board. And I take this as a real honor and a privilege to be here tonight. I'm here on behalf of the State Board of Education and our Standards Development Committee, which continues to review Arizona's education standards. Governor Ducey, in the March meeting, gave us strict instructions, and those strict instructions were to listen to the stakeholders as we review the standards. And we want to take as many avenues as possible to give you the opportunity to express your opinions regarding these standards, what you like, what you don't like, and what you think these standards should look like as we move forward. We value and appreciate you taking the time to be here tonight, and we'll be taking notes on your comments and sharing those with the full committee. There are 4 state board members that sit on that committee, and there's a total of 17 members on the Standards Review Committee that is comprised of community members, business leaders, teachers, administrators, and those from higher education. And then from that Standards Committee, we have teachers involved and curriculum developers for every grade level and every subject. So you can see that this is a very pervasive, thorough process in reviewing our current standards and making changes potentially for the future. If you'd like to share your thoughts, please fill out a public comment card. They're located there, and there's a pen there. I want to introduce Carmen. Carmen is here. She's going to collect those when you're finished with them, and after you make your statement. We need to keep those as a record. We are in an open meeting, and those comments then will be placed on our Standards Review website. Let me just get down to the brass tacks here. When you do the comment card, please make sure that you put on your email address and the zip code. This information is needed in order to input the comments into the online comment system. Please also note that this meeting is scheduled to run for an hour, so we'd like to keep public comments at around 3 minutes. Ms. Carmen will keep us on track, I hope. If we run out of time, the staff will collect any remaining comment cards and enter them into the online comment system. You may also feel free to enter further comments via the Academic Standards website between now and Friday, November 20. The public comment website address is k12standards.az.gov/comment-standards. I also want to emphasize that the purpose of this evening's meeting is for our education policymakers and administrators to listen to you and understand your thoughts. We will not provide a formal presentation nor any type of debate. That's kind of been something that's been going on. I'm not here to debate. I want to hear what your focus is. I'm not going to express my opinion or anything like that, and we want your comments to drive this evening's meeting. So again, thank you for being here, and I would now like to open up the floor for comments.
Check those mics, make sure they're working.
Test, 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 test. Kind of working. Okay. They'll be fine.
Ooh, feedback. All right, so it must be working.
If it's okay, Mr. Smith,
please.
I'd like to be the first guy. My name is Kevin Brackney. I do have the card filled out, so I'll leave it with you. Just to recap a little bit, when I started in education in 1993, Arizona was just coming and going through the ASAP testing program. I believe that was around Lisa Graham Keegan at the time. And then we started in, or we were doing, Iowa was the ITBS at the time. All right, and I guess what I'm going to give you this little background because I'm rather concerned from a student standpoint and a teacher standpoint. The standards have been there, but if you'll bear with me, we go back to ASAP, then the Iowa's ITBS, then we had Stanford 9 testing, and then we threw in Ames, then we threw in Ames 1, I believe it was Ames 2, and somewhere in that middle we had a Terra Nova test that got thrown in. And then we started up with Stanford 10. Then we were going to go to Park, but that got washed away. And then we ended up with AZ Merit. And now with these changes possible, or revisions of the standards, we're talking about maybe changing the AZ Merit a little bit. It is very frustrating as a student when you walk into a classroom and you sit down at the beginning of the day and the teacher says you're going to have a test at the end of the day that's going to look like this. Then halfway through the class they change the test, and then at the end of the test you've got something totally different than what you started with. Yet the standards really shouldn't change. As a superintendent, a teacher, I'm okay with the standards we have. I have no problems with the ELA standards, the math standards, social standards, and applaud the rigor. I really think that needs to be there. But the target cannot keep changing. Every time a teacher turns around, they've got a new target to shoot for, and the students are the ones that are suffering because the teacher doesn't know what to do. So you have a set of standards that's written by the state. You have the curriculum that's adopted by the district to adhere to those standards and get those standards done. And then you have the lesson plans that the teachers are trying to write to get the curriculum done to address those standards. But when you have an outside test that comes in and you try and measure the success of the kids against those standards, and the tool that you use to measure that continues to change, it's confusing and very difficult and very challenging for a quality teacher to do that. It's impossible. And I think that's frustrating on a number of things. The other thing I have about the standards is that it seems that we keep trying to push them down to lower grades, where in some cases that could be fine, but most of the time, for example, if you're going to try and take Algebra 1 and move it from a freshman, sophomore level down to 6th or 7th grade, those kids are not ready for those concepts and that way of thinking. It's not feasible. Will you have some students that will be successful? Yes, you will. But sometimes they might be successful and not understand the reasons why they're accomplishing those tasks. Anyway, as you take this information back, I think that for me, that's part of the problem with the standards. When I looked at the standards from where we were a few years ago to where we are, I have no problems with them personally. I don't think most people will overall with the standards, but my biggest concern is that testing instrument. It cannot keep changing. We just don't have the resources to train and the professional development resources to help our teachers be successful for the kids. Does that make sense? Yes, sir. Okay. With that in mind, I am manning a phone back here if it rings, and if you have comments, please take the time to fill this out, and there you go.
Thank you very much. Who'd like to come on up?
Great job, you guys.
Hello, my name is April Eager, and I'm a third grade teacher, so my thoughts are more around K-5. I've got several things with the standards as far as math goes, and one with ELA. With our math standards, I would like to see a better synchronicity of scaffolding. And I'll give you a couple examples. In third grade, we teach two-dimensional shapes and their attributes, when first grade teaches three-dimensional shapes. And to me, that's a little bit flip-flopped. I know that, first grade, they even start learning what an edge is, vertices, faces, they have to be able to do all of that. But some of the words even that we use to describe three-dimensional shapes like rectangular prisms, that's very hard for a first grader to wrap their head around because it's a hard word to say. And three-dimensional shapes have a lot of in-depth learning that they need to be able to do. And so I would like to see it where the younger grades are learning the two-dimensional shapes and then building and scaffolding it where it just flows better, it just works better. Another thing with math is, another example of how I'd like to see it flow better is area. Third grade teaches irregular area, where we have shapes that are not rectangles and squares to do the area of. And you go into fourth grade and they focus on just doing squares and rectangles. They don't do irregular area at all. And it's kind of backwards to me. I would like to see a better flow and synchronicity where the scaffolding works better. Also with math, in an email that was sent out by the board right after this whole law was set into place that Arizona was going to take charge of our standards, you said that it's going to be a slow change, and you said that math, ELA would probably be left alone, or a slow change in it, and you said that math was going to try to be made harder. Okay, we throw this word rigor around. We got to have it rigorous, rigor, rigor, rigor. Does anybody really know what rigor means? Rigor does not mean harder. Rigor means to go more in depth. And I don't understand if we're constantly pushing the standards down and requiring younger students to be able to do harder things, why do we still want to make it harder? We are pressed with time. We have up till spring break to be able to teach all of our standards, and then we have our testing. And teachers are pushed. We're pushed to the limits, and we are cramming it down our students, and we're barely touching the surface. Let us teach something that is developmentally appropriate for these students in depth. Let us get to that rigor. Don't make it harder. Let us get into the rigor. Let us get into depth with teaching it. With the ELA, I see a huge emphasis on reading comprehension, which would be like your close reading passages where they have to really check into really understand what they're reading. And it's a huge emphasis on reading comprehension. We're still required to teach all the other language arts standards, but I don't see, as far as the testing goes, I don't see as much of a testing on those other ELA standards. And so I would like to see a little bit of more of a balance with those things so that it's not just reading comprehension, because we do have kids that just cannot read, and it's a struggle for them. And I also would like to say that I do appreciate that teachers are on your committee at every grade level, because, you know, as a teacher, I would invite anybody at any time come in my classroom and see what's going on in the classroom. And, you know, one of my things is if you're going to make me do something, then let a teacher be one to give input on what you're making me do in the classroom. And I think that's it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, April. Don't you all jump up at the same time, you know.
How you guys doing?
Good, how are you?
My name is Pete Peterson, and I'm the father of 10 children. And I've got 5 boys and 5 girls. And I seem to have successfully, in the state of Arizona, gotten about 8 of the 10 graduated from high school with success. And a few of them have gone into higher education and have done very well. We appreciate the educational process and your part in that. I have some serious concerns, especially as my son is facing his junior year with this sudden turn and change and forcing down of higher concepts that in my opinion, the children are not prepared for. The whole concepts, and I guess the most surprising came to me when I went to, in the first few weeks, to kind of keep a close eye on my kids and see how you're doing and make sure. And by the way, I'm kind of a mean dad. I could be on the Mean Dad show. If my kids play sports, they have to have straight A's, okay? And so when my kids are struggling and they're getting up at 3:45 and 4 in the morning to achieve their goals, I have concerns about it. I have concerns that my kids are working that hard and not even having a manual in their hand that matches what they're studying and learning. Okay? I want to express my personal gratitude to the institution of Shiloh, and I've communicated my concerns about that, and I've had the ability to express that and have the support of my son's math teacher in doing and accomplishing those things. The concerns that I have is that we're not properly prepared. You know what we need to teach. We've agreed on these standards, but the vehicle is not there. I think it's a little bit like we can't even get to rigor because we don't even have the ability to really put the materials together in front of the children without us having to go to the internet, which gives us one simple model shape. This is the shape of a cow, but do you know how many different types of cows there are in the world? Okay, so how do we take these advanced concepts and shove them down without proper preparation or materials to support them? I don't mind teaching the kids younger, again, if we prepared them, but just to change the standard. So if standards often just change as the kids get older, say, well, at this year, we're going to have this standard. I remember 100 years ago, and my kids tell me I came over on the June flower, not the Mayflower, but when they changed the state standards, and even an English standard, I remember going to high school and I had taken I had like 3 or 4 classes of English. I had almost taken everything, but I had not taken an English literature class. And these people came to me and said, well, you can't graduate. I said, you got to be kidding me. You have to take an English literature class. And I says, okay. And the deal is that, I worked something out, and I got that worked out. The point is that we need to prepare them, okay? So I don't want my child going into math this year and next year without everything in place for him. He's willing to do the work. But why should we have to search the internet to look at these standards, these acronym standards that, I love you guys in math, but they're kind of boring, and have to try to figure it out what we need to teach our children? I don't know. I never learned that. I have nothing to go on. So how do I sit by their side and help them understand a concept that I have nothing to work from? Okay? I'm not a genius. I may be good looking, but I'm not a genius. Okay? Anyhow, I appreciate you listening to us. We're here in support of the entire process. We appreciate all the work that you do, but we are concerned here. Okay? So, and if I stuck you in a class today that you had to get an A in, and you went home tonight and didn't have any material that supported the problem I gave you, how are you going to handle that? You're not. Okay?
I have a quick question.
You're
I
not allowed to do
appreciate
that. You said there's no questions.
No, I just have a quick, no debating. You're talking currently, your student is a junior,
He's a junior.
and so I can make sure that I can put this in my notes.
No one's in trouble here because we're working, this is about our kids' education, so we work together. I don't know if Mrs. Fitzgerald's here, whatever her name is. I think that's what it is. I can't remember her first name. Okay, and so, and I've communicated with the administration here. I said, how can someone do something that they don't even have a manual for? All they have is if they're there and they have to participate in sports and they have to get it off the board. Mm-hmm. Are you kidding me? How do they do that? My son was gone today on a choir thing, okay? He works very hard for his ability he can't participate in those things. I guess I'm the mean dad in America. But I teach my children to work and the value of it, and they're willing to work, but we have got to help them have the materials to learn from.
So that's the primary concern, is that we don't have something that they can take with them, and what you were saying is they go to the, right.
How can I help him if he's struggling with the concept? And these concepts, this whole concept that's being pressed down, I've had the pleasure of trying to understand it. It's being pushed down. It's great, but these are concepts of kids who are trained on one, the basic, this is what you do, this is how it works, to saying, now we need to step out, and now we have to apply it. You have to figure out how to apply
Got it.
this application of this knowledge in a real world situation. You got to be kidding me.
Okay, thank you.
There's got to be materials there.
Thank you. Yeah.
I'm short. Hi, I'm Patricia Kramer. I am a 4th grade teacher here in Show Low. I'm also an Arizona lifelong resident. I did kindergarten all the way through my bachelor's degree in this state, so I'm very vested in this state. My concern is because as Mr. Brackney was saying earlier, the long list of tests, I took them all as a student, and now I'm teaching them. I've seen us change standards. My concern is Arizona prepared to not only change or improve standards, but roll them out prepared, as in have the state test ready, have our resources ready, have our curriculum ready, have our professional training, teachers ready, have parental training, like this gentleman, ready. Have all of this before the school year starts on the year we roll these standards out. Not getting AZ merit halfway through the year again, not finding out our standards are changing in July and we're going back in August. Having time to prepare ourselves, because we can only do what we're given. I need to know that Arizona is not only ready to change or improve, but also do it prepared. That's my comment.
Thank you. It's a good comment.
Good evening, Chuck. I believe I've met you before.
Yes, you have.
In a different capacity. This is a very short microphone, so there you go.
There
Thank
you are.
You know, we've talked and we had the discussion a lot about standards, and you can debate the rigor or the content, but the one element that is normally completely ignored is that our capital funding is not being met. Our teachers need materials, they need supplies, they need training. All of this costs money. We don't have textbooks anymore. It's a rarity. And the technology that's needed, we do not have the computers that are necessary to perform the Arizona Merit, therefore we're doing it on paper. It's about at a minimum, a couple $100,000 our district needs in order to get compliant with the test. So those capital needs are real. And to give you some context, we used to get $1.4 million in capital. This year will be $124,000. So the governor will understand this analogy. If he had his ice cream store and I gave him 2 flavors and I gave him 1 person and I gave him subpar ingredients and I said, now I'm going to hold you accountable for producing Haagen-Dazs, how would that turn out? Well, we know how it turned out. And our teachers, our public school districts, they need the funding. They need the support. We're cheating our kids. This is not about paying administrators. This is not about buying shiny new facilities. It's just the bare minimum that we need. So we need the technology, the textbooks, and the trainings in order to put our teachers in a position to be successful. And the next comment is the timing of the test is really tough. We have many schools that are on modified year-round, of which we're one. We're going to be back off of our break, and the next day we have testing. It's not fair to our teachers. It's not fair to the kids. We need some more flexibility. A 2-week window is insufficient. I'd suggest a month. The other thing is, if you look at the timing, as this one good teacher was pointing out, we're not even giving our teachers the full time for the kids to learn the skills. We're talking about in March. We go through April, we go through May. Why isn't the testing in late April, early May? So the timing, I'd ask you to consider that as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm Joy Pierce. I'm a member of the Show School Board. I was a member of the Show School Board in all of the 1980s, a good portion of the 1970s. It was my cat that dug that orchestra pit. My engineer Phil, we pushed up here that these seats are on, so I've been around a few days in this area. I have some concerns this last summer. And the beginning of this school year, I probably had at least 15 calls from parents concerning what their boys and girls, freshmen, were reading for their English class. And the curriculum that they're, no, the book that they used to read was the book 1984. Well, having been on the board in the 1980s, I remember that being presented as the reading material. Now, I can be wrong, and at my age, I can justify that. But it was presented. I remember our curriculum director read some of it. I read quite a bit of it. Norris McKay read quite a bit of it. I was president of the board, and I said, you know, I don't think that we want our students reading that particular material. But this last summer, that was the material that they were to read. And it's a very explicit, sexually oriented material. One mother went to the English teacher and said, why do we have this? And she said, well, that's what's presented to us. And also, She says, you ought to see what they're teaching in this senior class if you think that's explicit. Well, that's one of my concerns. I have a concern about math. A few months ago, maybe, I don't know, I still take the credit that it might have been a year ago, but anyway, they presented what was going to study in math. And I remember our curriculum director said, the material in math is fiction science or science fiction. And I thought, good gosh, why are we studying fiction when there's so many real good things that need to be studied and learned? That might need to be reviewed a little bit. And then my final comment, and I was down at the state fair and I seen a student come by with a t-shirt on, and it said, concerned student. And their concern was, it says, dear God, why is there so much violence in the classroom and in the schools? And then the answer on their back was from God, and it says, dear concerned student, I'm not allowed in the schools. Well, my concern is whenever you can take sunlight, air, and water and everything out of the schools, then we don't have to worry about the Supreme Being. But until then, we need to have a little concern. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chuck, while we're waiting here, I do have two comments that have come in. I want to remind the folks that are watching on the webcast to dial in. But I have a Teresa from zip code 86025, and it reads, this is regarding English, says, if the standards for ELA are relaxed, how can we be sure that our children will be able to function in our competitive society? There are always serious issues with how our children communicate, not only with each other, but with employers and other authority figures. I hope the standards will remain high or even increase. And then the other one I'd like to read here is from Dexter, and it's area zip code 86004. And it says, I'm watching the broadcast, and I'm glad you are able to web stream it. Thank you. So we're trying to reach out, and those are the only two I have. So those that are watching on the internet, please send your comments.
And by the way, Dexter Albert is a parent member of our standards committee.
Super.
Hi. I didn't bring a comment card because I didn't think I was going to say anything, and then my colleague, April Eager from Round Valley, got up here and spoke, and I wanted to back something up that she said. My name is Eileen Tyrrell, and I'm a native of Arizona. 25 years ago, I married the love of my life, and he took me away from Arizona until about a year ago. And in that time, we raised 2 kids, and they're 5 years apart, and they went to 4 different school districts in 4 different states. This one's the 5th, except that I work in the 5th. I have the privilege of working in education. The reason why I tell you what the history is 2 were rural and 2 were suburban. So we've been around the block a little bit. And when I was in my former state, I was very active. Whenever the kids went to school, I was very active in their education. There's been a lot of changes since 1998 when Will got off the bus to kindergarten, when he graduated in 2011, and then Haley 5 years later. But I'm going to come to you as a parent who always volunteered in the classroom, and then things kind of changed because we kind of weren't welcome to the classroom, or for whatever reason. I don't think it was that. I think we got just so darn busy we didn't even have time. And then I had the privilege of coming back here to Round Valley and working in a school district with a great bunch of people, but it's rural, and there's a big difference. From a parent's approach, I'm now a 3rd grade aide. So I was on the outside, and I only saw the papers come home. But this, I really see the difference in the curriculum. And I see the challenges on the other side, like nobody knows what it's like to be a stay-at-home mom or a full-time working mom. Well, you try being a teacher when they keep adding more and more and more and more stuff, and you squeeze it in. And that thing about the curriculum not being prepared, yeah, that 15-minute recess, you know what they do? They hurry up and get on the computer, they run to the bathroom, they try to find. I have never seen more collaboration in a car during the teachers do it everywhere. But here's my point. You can be a teacher on a school board, you can be a teacher on the Department of Education Board for Arizona, and you can be out of the classroom 5 years and it has changed dramatically because I've seen it. Now I'm in there and I'm helping them and I've seen a different side that I never saw. So I think you should take Mrs. Eager seriously. Literally come into the classroom. And not just in Tucson and Phoenix and Gilbert and Mesa. Someone's got to come up here and face the economic and social challenges that they have. Because it's one thing to sit in a boardroom and do a standard and say that third graders have to type for their AZ merit. Okay, so third graders have to do a lot of things, okay? But it's another thing to do in the boardroom, and then it's to come in and see it. I want you to come in, sir, and I want you to see when the internet goes down, or when the batteries go down, or when the load's overload and we can't get in. But I want you to see, and I see it around Valley, and that's all I can attest to. I want you to see people squeezing. How do you say that? I don't know. Now I just lost my... Yeah. Because that's not, they're just doing money. But what I want is, it's a totally different experience as a parent when you're working on the other side. And that's me. And I'm on the other side. Okay? So it's not us against them. It's not you against me. We all have to do this together. But you are not going to see the picture unless you... And don't spend a day. Don't spend an hour. Don't stay one period. Just agree to come in an elementary building for a whole week. Please, because you got to see the whole week unfold. Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
All right.
Thank you.
Can I say something? And to follow up on that a little bit, I agree. Nobody understands in the metro areas what a wind day really looks like in northern Arizona when our whole internet goes out because the wind has blown today. I was telling Carmen a little while ago that it's not necessarily the storm coming in tonight that's going to be the problem, but I-40 gets closed due to wind. Barry and I are both natives of our areas. He grew up in Round Valley in Springerville, and I grew up in Show Low. This is my home stomping grounds. I'm a graduate of Snowflake High School because Show Low didn't have this in the 70s. So we have come a long way in those years. But the rural schools are really up against some very difficult times. We don't have books. We don't have capital to spend on computers and on the internet and on the pipeline. And even if we did have the money, we have a Frontier Communications that says to us, I'm sorry, you're not big enough for us to really, spend any money on, so we're not going to upgrade your stuff because you're not worth it for us. So we have a lot of problems that are not necessarily going to be fixed by any single one thing. But I think you're right. It's important to see what these classrooms really look like and feel like and sound like. We have teachers doing incredible jobs out in the rural parts of Arizona. Apache and Navajo County comprise about 20,000 square miles. Okay, 20,000 square miles. Between the two of us, we have 22 districts. Yavapai County, which is, smaller than us, has 26 school districts. So we're at a disadvantage to begin with. We have some great teachers doing great work, but it's difficult to do without the professional development that they need. Title II has been cut. It's difficult to do without the supplies and books that they need. Soft capital's been cut. It's difficult to do in buildings that leak. Capital's been cut. We have to fund education, and that's the bottom line. I'll stop.
Please come to the,
Come on, Mr.
come up and
Adams.
speak. I'll add my comments in a minute.
Howdy all, it's good to have you in Shoal tonight. I'm Farrell Adams from here in Sholo at the high school. My comments do represent secondary education. This evening I just came out of a 2-hour PLC meeting with several of my leaders in the school, and the conversations of tonight came into that meeting. A concern that's been at the high school as we look at these standards, I want to reflect two, and then the real concern. One is the concern that our teachers don't have time to prepare for what the state is throwing at us. We go into school years without understanding what the standards are or what the assessment's going to be, and so we're left to shoot in the dark for a lot of our preparation. That's got to change. We've got to be able to know ahead of time, and that's just reiterating the point. The other point is, wouldn't it be nice if, as a administrator at the secondary level, I have an 11th grader, and I could look at their history from kindergarten through 11th grade and say, you know, here's the math standards where this student is weak, and I could target and assist that child in those math standards and strengthen them and help them achieve and find success because I know where they're weak. I have no chance to do that right now unless I develop that myself. We have got to get on track, Arizona, come on. We are the leaders of this state. We have got to get on track with this. We've got to understand what mastery learning is and how to help kids achieve standards and track that throughout their course. It happens in other states, we can do it in Arizona. My comment is this. I'm a physics, chemistry, that's my years of teaching. I can't imagine teaching chemistry for 2 weeks with this philosophy. Now here we are, students. Here's what the standards are for today, and here's all these little assessments. And at the end of this, there's going to be an exam. But don't worry about that exam because that exam has no bearing on your grade. But there's going to be an exam, and my principal's going to fire me if you don't score well on this exam. But don't worry about it because this exam has no reflection on your grade. But my principal will fire me. But don't you worry about it because it has no reflection on your grade. You get my point. How can we go into end of course testing without any student accountability? Now I have some of our great students here tonight filming, and I'm sure they'd just like to shoot their principal for saying what he just said. But what this principal is saying is we cannot go into student assessments without student accountability. That must change. Guys, that has to change. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Way to go, Phil. All right, Robbie.
As Robbie's coming up here, I'll just put a couple cents in this whole piece. And again, we're focusing on standards comments and specifically math and language arts standards. But I think it's important to understand the dynamics of the rural schools. 2 weeks ago, we had a pretty good rainstorm in this area. I was in Chinle at the time looking at school buses that transport kids on a good day an hour one way. And I'm looking at a school bus that's buried to its axles in the mud. They have to cancel school for 2 days because we can't get the children safely to school. It's not about getting them to school, it's about getting them to school safely. And of course, on the reservation, it's mud. Up here in our part of the woods, it's ice. It's passable roads that are safe. And we're concerned about those, and those affect how students perform on standards. That affects how that student continues their education on a regular day-to-day basis without the loss. So it's a complex issue that goes into lots of things. And I'm just going to close with, standards are very appropriate. We've got building standards, U.S. Building Code, Uniform Building Standards. I'll guarantee you there aren't a single contractor out there that builds something exactly the same. And that's curriculum. And our curriculum is handled by our local governing boards and our teachers. But standards we can agree with, but we need to have them defined and broad and stable because you don't change them on a day-to-day basis. So, Robbie, I'll turn the clock time to you.
Thank you. I'm representing superintendent, parent, and educator. I've been in the game for 24 years, and I want to talk first from the parent perspective. I've kind of got a control group and I've got an experimental group. I've got two in higher ed that went through the Ames era, so to speak, and then I've got an 8th grader right now. And so I compare. I'm very analytical about where my older children are right now, one at UNLV, one at NAU, and where Kobe is as an 8th grader. And I'm seeing a vast difference between where Corey and Kyla was when they were in 8th grade and where Kobe is. In terms of looking at knowledge, I don't think there's much of a difference. I don't think the standards are going to drastically change our knowledge base. What I do see is a skill level. I see Kobe having to validate his answers. I see Kobe having to research his answer. I see Kobe having to explain what it is that he's learning and how he is learning. And to me, that's exciting as a parent because I see my older children in college having to do that on a regular basis. They have to do that to be successful in college. And so when we talk about are they preparing our kids for college and career readiness, my kids aren't in careers yet, but they're definitely in college. And I see this being a true step to preparation. So we talk about knowledge, we talk about skills. I think the skill level or the standards are really enhancing the skill level. And then the third element of standards is test preparation. And that's the major concern that I have, and I think that most people have voiced. Give us time to implement these standards before you truly evaluate us. Not necessarily just taking the AZ merit assessment, but the true labels that are going to come out. The AZ merit scores, I can tell you from our district, they're dismal, and they'll be publicly released soon. People need to give us time. We'll adjust. We're educators. We'll adjust to whatever assessment that you give us, but give us time before you throw labels on us. Because if we're going to label people at the current level, it's not going to be fair. We need time to adjust, and we will. So hopefully the State Board of Education will consider the end result of this, which is truly getting our kids college and ready, career ready, but also that concept of labeling a school district based off of performance. So, thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Robbie. Dr. Corporate is from Holbrook.
I know.
I know.
The Red Runners.
Hi, my name's Alex, and I work for Sholo, but before I came to Sholo, I worked out in CBQ. I know how it feels to have your job on the line for a test that makes absolutely no bearing on my kids' grades. Also, I taught kinder in CBQ, and we were looking at the standards, and I was teaching multiplication to my kinder students. And that bothers me a little bit. As I have my colleague here talking about 3rd grade, so happens I was doing 3D shapes today and researching edges to try to figure out the best way for them to conceptualize that, because they have to literally be able to visualize those edges, which I'll be honest with you, I have a problem with sometimes too. So I'm expecting my 1st grader, my 6 or 7-year-old, to make those connections. And that's where I think some of the math standards, we need to kind of look at them, move some up, move some down. The other thing I worry about is there is no standards for money in the 1st grade. And then I noticed in 2nd grade, they're just supposed to recognize it. That's not fair. So yes, I'm gonna put in money, coins, for my 1st graders, because I think it's a slap in the face to go in and be just expected to know it. I'm also a mom, and my son is very lucky because I work with him, but not all kids out here have that opportunity. Working on the reservation, working my 1st year here in Sholo, up on the mountain too, it's everywhere. Parents are working 2 jobs, or they have other priorities, and we're the only ones there teaching them. And so when I think about the standards, I don't have a problem with them per se, but I would like us to be a little bit more developmentally appropriate for them. And my other thought I have to say as we bring up testing, which is connected to standards, I give my kids a test that's 46 questions long in math, 46 questions long in reading. It is a bubble-in test. We do the bubbling in, the kids do the circling, but I think about it, and as my little ones who they want to please me so much, and we're at the end of the test and they say, "Miss Steidering, how did we do? How did I do?" And, you know, realistically, They don't do very well in the beginning. But how can I, and I explained to them, don't worry about this test. It's not going to affect you. We're going to keep learning. We're going to keep doing what needs to be doing. But emotionally, they start feeling vested. And I feel like instead of giving that emotion to this testing, could we, set up some play groups to work on how to speak to each other correctly? Things that let me tell you, I love the digital age. I use iPads in my classroom. I go to computer lab 4 times a week. I love technology, but as I took my son's iPad away for a week, wow, he can talk a lot. You know what I mean? So that's what I'm thinking. The kids are so used to, here's the phone, go do that. Or mom and dad's on the phone. Or go sit and watch TV. They're missing that emotional social. And I really think that career and college ready is to be able to discuss with your peers, your colleagues, or your college professors. And so why don't we throw in a little bit of that emotional part of it? And I know we have the speaking standards in the ELA, but can we add in or drop a little to provide those groups for those kids who are dealing with anger issues, or tonight they have no wood, so they're gonna be freezing when they come in tomorrow and they cannot wait to get on that bus for that warm air. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Sherry Ramirez. I teach at Blue Ridge Elementary School. I just have 2 short comments. The first is, in regards to standards, I think less is more. And echoing some of the sentiments that have already been expressed, we need time to go deeper, not wider. And kids do need time to talk and think. And I'm a little concerned specifically about our state superintendent's attitude that we know what's best for our students. I kind of question that. Anybody that wants to be great studies what other great places do. And if you look at places like Japan, by 7th grade, math students in Japan are doing less than half of what students in the United States do. Maybe 4 concepts a year, but they know them inside and out. So if we're going to be successful as a state, we need to study what successful school districts do across our country and across the globe. Thank you.
Thank you. If I can, I just want to thank all of you. If you still have something to say, we want to hear it. But first of all, in a former life that some of you remember me from, I think it's very important that you recognize that it isn't the state of Maricopa. I'm here and I volunteered to come to Flagstaff and Show Low because I do believe in the rural areas. In my family life, we live on a ranch that's north of the city, but I turn on a generator in the morning and I turn it off at night. I get up and feed cows in the morning and horses and do it at night when I get home. My daughter is a part of that as well, and I recognize if I can't get out because it's raining, I can't get out. And I am going to take that message back. The second thing that I'm really getting from this tonight is age appropriate. That's been a significant discussion, and that is something that I'll truly remember to take back along with all of the other notes. And then the third thing is supporting teachers. I am going to come up here. I don't know if I can do a week, but I am going to, maybe even tomorrow, I'm going to be in town and I'll see if I can find a classroom to sit in. I think that's very important. I come from a career in education, public and private. My focus has always been on children. I was also a youth minister for a while. And I think what you do as parents and what your teachers are doing and what your administrators are doing and just being familiar with the schools in this area, you do a fabulous job. The passion that comes out of this area for your children is not only evident what you do in the classrooms, but also the sports. And that's what I'm most familiar with. And then finally, I want to say that I will, certainly with the committee, focus on timing. I hear that loud and clear, that we're not going to just drop something on you. At least that's going to be my voice, that we provide enough time to prepare, for letting you prepare as administrators and parents especially, and then your students and teachers to work with the students and have the time to be ready for how that accountability will be there. And then I'm also going to explore more. I'm going to talk to folks like the administrators that have spoken tonight. How can we incorporate student accountability? I think that's very important, not only for the teachers, but for the kids. So I can't thank you enough. I know it's a Tuesday night. There are a lot of things that people, I think it's Tuesday, right?
Pretty sure it's Tuesday.
Yeah, it's been a long week already. And I can't thank you enough for being here. And with that, is there anybody else that wants to say anything? If you don't want to speak and have a comment card, Carmen's here. You can give them to her and we'll put those in. I'll be sharing this information with the Standards Committee and also the two chairs, Scott Leska and Jared Taylor. I think it's very important that they hear what you had to say tonight, and I thank you for your time, and truly, I'm taking it to heart and appreciate all that you do for kids. And with that, thank you, Kevin.
Yeah, and before you take it, Kevin, I will leave this comment form, this Google form that's here available. If any of you in the audience or anyone are listening on the webcast, I'll leave that open until sometime tomorrow, and then I will close it, and I will email all of those comments to Carmen so she has them. So, thank you.
We'd like to thank Carmen and Chuck for coming up here, because it's not an easy drive. We know the road goes both ways, but lots of times it doesn't feel like it for us. So thank you for being here. We appreciate it.
It's an honor. It's truly an honor.
In closing, just so you'll know, I've known Chuck for about 12 years, and he is a man of integrity. I've really enjoyed working with him. When he says he'll take our comments back, he will, and you can have some peace of mind knowing that, and I think we're well represented in that area. So Chuck, thank you for being here tonight.
Thank you, Kevin, for saying that. That means a lot.
Thank you so much from the governor's office. Thanks for taking your time, and your mom too.
Yeah.
You know, coming on that's just awesome that you do that. And I can't tell you as an audience how proud I am to be and live in the White Mountains. We've come here because we care about kids. We want to see our kids be successful in all walks of life and in whatever paths that they may choose to walk, and a quality educational system. I'd put my kids in any of these mountain schools, long before I take them to the valley. I think what we do up here is so much more than just the academics that they get. That is so important, and I've worked with the teachers, throughout the White Mountains. We have great people in front of our kids, and that's important. And not just teachers, but our aides, our cafeteria folks, our technology people. These kids tonight that are here doing this, they're phenomenal. Would you give them a round of applause again? So with that in mind, I appreciate your time, and you guys have a safe night. And I tell you what, Mike, I'll be calling you at about 4 o'clock in the morning to see if it's snowing. We're on track here, and so thank you all. Have a great night.